Congratulations! Congratulations! Preparation is finally done. You are ready to set up the... Hello, fellow journey mappers! I'm Lisa from UXpression and I'm happy to see you on our YouTube channel where we cover all mapping related topics and go a bit beyond that. If you are new to our channel, make sure to check out our guides. We also have plenty of recordings of our online events with experts. For example, if you want to hear an expert view on how to UX research in a challenging business environment, just pause this video and click on the pop-up that will appear right there. And now, let's get started. All projects are unique, but they have some common issues remain. Obviously, the mapping process itself is always exciting. Firstly, you create a persona profile that represents your target audience. You describe their background, goals, motivations, frustrations, and other important details. And voila! You have a main character of your story that feels like a real human being. And then you take your persona by the hand and walk together through the journey. You describe every action that they complete, emotions they feel, figure out what brings them joy or otherwise what ruins their experience. If you ever wanted to be Sherlock Holmes for a little while, that's your time to shine. On such a bright note, I have to cool your ardor and bring back to earth. The first seed of doubt is usually planted when you start thinking about getting a desired yes from upper management for your initiative. What if the executives aren't as excited about the initiative as I am? What if they won't see the value of spending time and money on building a journey map and I won't be able to convince them? For example, according to the Forrester research, 48% of CX leaders say that to get a buy-in for a journey mapping initiative is the biggest obstacle for them. I would love to say that such worries are simply far-fetched, but in fact, there are grounds for doubt. That's not a secret that in the end of the day, everything is about numbers, but when we speak about journey mapping methodology, it may take some time to notice the first results from it. This question has come up many times during Q&A sessions with our experts, so I decided to put together some helpful tips for you. Martina Meets is a UX psychologist, strategist, and designer. She highly recommends supporting your speech with numbers that would illustrate the profit of journey mapping clearly. For example, you can use data from a research company, like the one collected in the Aberdeen report. Aberdeen interviewed 211 companies and divided them into two groups. The ones who had done customer journey mapping and kept it up to date, and all other companies that maybe mapped once, but most likely not at all. From this research, you can see, for example, that employee engagement increased by 15%. It means that Journey Map not only helps your new employees to onboard and understand your service much quicker, but it shows your most niche employees that their work counts. Isn't that great? What if I won't be able even to convince the executives to spare the time for me in their busy schedule? In this case, Martina has another great trick up her sleeve. She recommends firstly to get the highest person on board, see who their buddy is, and get their buy-in. Once they have bought in, they can make other colleagues to free up their calendars. Isn't that genius? Another tip on how to handle stakeholders' uncertainty comes from Jodie Fielding. Jodie is a director at HuMind, a business consulting agency. Jody recommends being able to show the value of a journey map very quickly by providing the insights from it already after the first session. In her case, for example, her team was able to show that their client's marketing collateral material was great, but by the time one got to using the product and the back end of the life cycle, it was pretty average. In this way, they were able to show the executives how beneficial it is to be involved into a journey mapping initiative from the very beginning. One more tip comes from Rod Netterfield, a director at HuMind. He recommends showing the stakeholders a specific pain point that a customer is experiencing and a corresponding pain point inside the company that they have as a business unit. If people are eventually able to see themselves in the map and how the things will change if one contributes to improving upon it, this can help a lot to get a buy-in. Simran Singh is a UX researcher, and here is a piece of advice from him. In the beginning, it doesn't have to be the whole board to approve the initiative, but at least one stakeholder is enough. He recommends starting the communication with that one executive that feels and sees the value of UX in general. Then to pick the process that is most broken or needs to be fixed, do the research in that space and create an onboarding journey. Simran suggests not to expect to get a buy-in in the first presentation. You might have to repeat your pitch again and again whenever there is an opportunity until you will be noticed. Yene Paz, a user experience researcher at Macadamian, suggests having a solid justification why people should invest time and money into the journey mapping initiative. She says that some people fall in love with journey mapping at first sight, and they will immediately get its value. But for the others, it's not that obvious, and they may continuously ask why questions. And the last but not the least tip comes from Mike Wittgenstein, founder of Story Miners, an agency that helps leadership to develop their strategies successfully. Mike's advice is about initiating the creation of journey map in a global business company, where everyone is vested in their own processes, and that is also a common issue. Mike recommends creating opportunities for people from different parts of the company to work together. For example, to take a field trip and meet with your customers. Another Mike's suggestion is to do an exchange program where people from each department can do other department's job just for a day. When everyone gets immersed into each other's responsibilities and daily tasks, it helps to create trust and give a view of what the other person's life is really like. Once you've shaped an overall understanding of how to handle stakeholders' uncertainty, let's slowly move on to the next common issue that our journey mappers come across. Should I map alone or with a team? Instead of a direct answer, let me remind you of a well-known parable where 6 blind men were put in front of an elephant and asked what an elephant was. The first man replied that an elephant was something like a tube. The second one was confused and said that he was holding a spear in his hand. The third man that was holding an ear replied that for him an elephant was something like a flappy cloth. The fourth man, who was holding an elephant's leg, said that he was hugging a tree. The fifth man said that there even was no elephant, but just a wall. And the sixth man said that he had no idea what the rest were talking about because he was holding a rope. In the context of journey mapping, the product or business processes might be viewed completely differently, depending on the person, their department, sphere of responsibility, and so on. Creating a journey map only from one perspective would automatically tailor the work of other departments to a certain subjective point of view. But to shape the real picture of what's going on, you need to view it from all angles. So, does it mean that it would be the most effective to invite someone from absolutely every department of the company? Don't worry, there is no need for that. Michael Brandt, founder and senior consultant at CX Excellence, suggests involving the next parties. Departments that are directly involved in the journey, such as customer service, marketing, sales, product design, and product marketing. Support functions like quality management and HR that may be indirectly involved but still have an impact on the process. And the customer. If you have doubts about involving the customer, here are a few approaches to consider. You can organize validation sessions with the selected customers that will help to evaluate your is state and target state maps. You can gather focus groups to discuss certain aspects of the journey. You can collect customer feedback from various touch points. You can also conduct customer interviews. That sounds like many departments and people need to be involved, but is it possible to establish a smooth collaboration process of a large number of people? No worries, everything is possible. To help you avoid common problems, we released a series of events dedicated to collaborative journey mapping at UXpression. We collected best practices on how to plan and organize such an initiative. You can find the link to the recordings of all 4 sessions right there. For now, let's assume you've already decided on which departments to involve in the map creation process. But are you going to involve all the members of the departments or just the representatives? Obviously, not everyone needs to edit the map itself, so we recommend to assign roles to people. There can be active contributors, those people who map, advisors. They are the people who have enough expertise to participate as consultants, though they don't personally do the mapping, but they will be affected by the results. And sponsors, the leaders who supply you with funding. As you can see, not everyone will be mapping the journey itself, but you need to give people an understanding of what you expect them to do. If you work in the UXpression journey mapping tool, you can specify user roles when granting people access to the project. That will be also a great idea to outline the roles in one place, for example in the map description section, so that everyone can see them. After clarifying the roles, we recommend you describe goals and expectations from each member of the project team. To avoid potential confusions and misunderstanding, it's better to have them documented in the project description. It all comes down to the deadlines. That's why it's crucial to set up a timeline in the very beginning and make sure everyone is familiar with it. So if you don't want to end up like in the famous horse meme, you'd better agree with your team and stakeholders on the timing right at the start. If you don't want to underestimate or overestimate the required time for any stage, you may ask yourself the following questions. Where is my team right now? How well do they know mapping as a technique? How close are the initiative goals to them? That should help you assess which part of the process could potentially take more time or stall the entire process. After that, you should decide on the facilitator. If your first thought was, doesn't the initiator automatically become the facilitator? Then I will warn you. Managing the initiative might take all the time and energy. That's why it would be better to have a manager and a facilitator as 2 different people. Facilitator should make sure that everyone feels comfortable contributing to the map and the whole team is on the same page. Facilitators are generally good listeners, able to prevent conflict, avoid subjectivity, and don't give advice. Congratulations! Preparation is finally done. You're ready to start the mapping process. The way how it's going to develop entirely depends on whether it is synchronous or asynchronous collaboration. We have explored both types at our events and suggest you check them out and decide which one can be applied specifically to your case. I hope I've clarified the most critical points that might have caused your confusion. If you're looking for more detailed information on each problem, you will find all the relevant links in the description of this video. And feel free to ask your questions in the comments. Happy mapping!